welcome to another edition of Huddle Up. And today, our special guest is Frank Van Buren. And Frank's we got a lot to talk about with Frank. The guy's all-star running back and ship. He's in the military, Army helicopter pilot, and it's a successful businessman. So there's a lot to cover with Frank. Also with me, of course, is Rob Clark, who are quarterback in resident. And Rob and Frank played together for a bit, so we'll have some insight there. I want to thank our sponsor, Maxie's, for supporting the program. And thank you, Rob. And also just want to remind everybody about the spring game. Frank's going to be our keynote at the spring game. So we're really excited about that. So, get online, register for the spring game. We're getting a good number of people coming, and we're real excited about that. Okay, so Frank, I'm just going to jump into it with you here, man. What's the thing that got you to Shippensburg? I mean, you were pretty much a stud running back from what everybody tells me. I never got a chance to see you play, but what was the road that led you to Ship?
It's actually a really interesting story, and it involves Coach Monis. I know he was one of your guests. But my junior year in high school, I attended a camp at Shippensburg University. And I loved the camp, and I got a chance to work with Coach Mo. Well, Coach Mo obviously had an influential impact on how I thought about the game, and I enjoyed it. But I had this perception that I was going to be playing tailback for Notre Dame or Nebraska or something like that. And as you guys remember, back then we didn't have Rivals.com and all these different mechanisms to figure out where you stood relative to other really good running backs. So it was almost like in my little world in Montgomery County, Maryland, I thought because I'm a really good running back here, well, of course I didn't know about Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson and guys like that. So I think my value of myself was a little bit distorted at that moment. Well, fast forward, finished the camp at Shippensburg, had a great experience, went back to Maryland, played the last year, and then recruiting day or signing day came about. And I remember not getting any calls that day from the big schools. Now I thought I was going to get, Lou Holtz or whoever was, I can't remember, it was Jerry Faust or whatever, calling from Notre Dame and Nebraska. Because you remember as a kid, you had this perception that you would be recruited at the highest levels. So the day went on and I didn't get any calls, got a few smaller calls. And lo and behold, Coach Mo calls. And my father picks up, and Coach Mo, you guys know how persuasive he can be. He's such a smooth operator. He asked my dad, he said, "Did Frank sign today?" And my dad said, "No, he didn't." And Coach Mo said, "Well, we'd love to have him at Shippensburg. You should bring him up." And that call on signing day was what led me to Shippensburg University. Of course, at the moment, I was disappointed because my perception of where I wanted to go didn't match up with Division II. But of course, once I got there and learned more and more about what life would be like there, my time there, the 4 years, was awesome. I wouldn't trade it for playing tailback for Nebraska because, so many good relationships, so many interesting life events occurred there. And at the end of the day, Coach Monis was a great coach. Coach Vito Ragazzo was the head coach. Oh, I got stories about Coach Ragazzo. But at the end of the day, it was a great choice for me, and it was the right choice for me. And in the context of a 17-year-old at the time, I didn't recognize the importance of that call that Coach Monis made. So, Coach Mo, if you're out there listening, man, thanks for calling me on that day, because it turned out that Shippensburg, always has a place in my heart. I loved my time there, and I loved the time playing with the guys like Rob and being coached by great leaders like Coach Mo, Coach Bott, and Coach Ragazzo.
Nice. Well, I have to say this before I even ask a question.
Sure.
Before we started recording, we talked about some of the guys that influenced us. And Frank, I got to thank you. You were the guy that I looked up to. There were a couple on the team, but I'm not lying here. You were the guy. Like when you did something, we knew that was the right way to do it. So we did it that way. And I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of us. So thank you for being you and being the leader, because you looked out for us too. And we appreciate that. We picked up on some of that stuff. But
Well, that kind of, well, you say that, and that's not something I take lightly in passing, because at the end of the day, the deeper I get into life, the more I realize how much relationships are. And, as I look back on my life and the things that really gave me a sense of fulfillment, it was always when I thought I was impacting others in a positive way. And we'll get into some of those stories later. But when you say that, it really matters to me more than a lot of things. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to jump in real quick before you
Go
move
ahead.
on here, Rob. But Frank, you mentioned some of the guys you played with earlier. Could you just give us a quick rundown of some of the guys that were on those teams and maybe their influence or impact?
Yeah, well, when I showed you, you mentioned Chip. Chip as a leader on the team, and we had guys like Dave Hurdle and John Reese, and Tommy Miller. When I got there, was an incredible running back, and I learned a lot watching him and competing against him. That was great. Dan Carey, Mark Beans, his QB, like Stacks. We had a lot of great players over the years. Charles Chewy, you guys know Charles Parker, and there was just, Mike Truitt, like so many great guys that just flash in front of my mind when I think about it. Chris Tatter, he's a character. But through thick and thin, I think you bond with these guys. And that's the magic of sports, is that it bridges so many people from different backgrounds. Luke came from a different background than, let's say, Dwayne Jones, from Rob to me. Like, we all came from different places, but we were connected by this brotherhood and the sense that we were trying to do something larger than ourselves. We wanted to win football games. And because of that, we were tight. We hung out together. It's really remarkable what sports and the military. I had, obviously my military experience had the same set of camaraderie, but so many great players that I was able to play with. And I could go all day on naming them, but so many fantastic characters.
Well, kind of going with the same theme, Frank, your experience at Ship, for being this amazing running back, and I always enjoyed watching you run, to the injury, because that obviously is something too to overcome. How did all this shape you and lead you down the path that you've currently chosen?
Well, again, if I look back on life and I observe other people's lives, it's usually those dark moments that become the pivot point for your life, if you look at them that way. And it is a mind game. So when I think back of the day when I didn't get any calls, from the big schools, turned into, but I got a call from Coach Monis, and that led me to a place that I truly loved, and it was right for me. And when I think about that injury, Rob, I mean, before that, I would have told you I would have had a chance to run back kicks or do something in the NFL. And, but it's those moments where you go through the injury it was against IUP, and I had this terrible knee injury, medial collateral, lateral collateral, 5 of the 6 major structures blown out in the third quarter. And if you remember, the game started off with a great play where I scored on a 78-yard fake reverse.
I remember.
So, life is all about managing the lows and celebrating the highs. And I think back to laying on that field, knowing I was in trouble because it was numb. I couldn't feel anything. And then in the locker room, it was a long time before I knew I had a serious injury. And if you would have asked me at that moment, how I felt about it, I would have said, this is the worst moment of my life. But in retrospect, to your question, that moment allowed me to show a lot of tenacity and to fortify my soul and to work hard and to work with, Stephen Heckler and others on rehabilitating a knee, to sitting out and watching you guys play when I couldn't help, that was a very low moment. But because of that, when I came back, you guys voted for the Ray Ellis Fighting Heart Award, which to me was a sign, a symbol of character. Obviously, Ray Ellis, his life spoke about that. But to me, it was those tough moments at Shippensburg that then gave me the mental toughness and the discipline to do well in my next phase. That moment also clarified to me that I probably wasn't going to play NFL football. Yeah, I came back and played, but I was probably a 4.6 40 guy after that, and never could hit the next gear. And of course, we changed offenses. So, a couple of things happened, but what it did do is it clarified that maybe my path was different in life. And that's how I stumbled into the path of becoming not just an Army officer, but a military pilot. And so it was those early moments that were pivot points that changed the trajectory of my life that led me down the path to becoming a pilot, and then from a pilot into becoming a business person.
I read your book. I got your book right here, and it's a great book.
Thank
I
you.
will hype it to anybody who asks. But just some of the stories in your book. You're Honduras, Beirut, flying a helicopter, obviously some very dangerous areas. But one of the things I think that struck me was that you comment in there about how you felt it was such a great sense of that you were helping people, in a lot of your missions. It wasn't necessarily militarily, achieving those goals as much as it was helping people. And just give us some background on, I know it's a long time, it's a lot of years. And I saw the picture of you standing outside the helicopter. You look like you weigh about 230 in that picture. I don't know. Might have been the angle. You look like you're down to about 185 right now.
Yeah, I think I'm 190 now. And, back then it was like we lifted a lot, because as a pilot, you have a lot of time where you're not flying. So we lifted a lot and probably ate well. And, we still had youth on our side. But, for me, as I think back, you mentioned Honduras. One of the missions that I really loved was we would use helicopters to land in these remote villages. So just picture, 14,000 feet up on the side of a mountain, there's a village, and that village has absolutely no access to healthcare, immunizations, vaccinations, etc. And the folks there are absolutely poverty stricken. Or picture a triple canopy jungle, where it's hard to get to unless you have the resources, helicopters, and also the skills of the pilot to put it in those positions. And, on cases where we would land on these mountaintops, you would circle the landing zone, and there was always one guy from the village with a stick and, a white garment, an old t-shirt on it that marked the landing zone and helped us to determine where the winds were, because landing on mountains can get a little bit treacherous also because of the downdrafts, etc. And I always remember as a pilot circling and looking down and seeing literally the whole village like ants moving towards this landing zone because they heard the helicopter. And I'm literally getting goosebumps right now. As we're circling and landing, you just felt this sense like, man, this is happening because I've developed these unique skills. And it's not about a cool helicopter or a nice flight suit or whatever. I honestly felt like my unique skills were impacting their lives, because when we landed, the doctors and medical teams would run out, set up the tables. They'd start applying vaccinations, immunizations, lessons on cholera and things like that. But that impact was felt. And I feel the same way when I'm talking to a group of veterans or talking to brand new college students that are now graduates and starting in an organization. It's the foundation of why I love doing what I'm doing now. I'm working with a lot of people and helping them on leadership, professional soft skills. But it was the fact that I thought I was impacting others that made that experience in the military so great. And, there were all sorts of different missions that we did, but that one resonates the most with me because of that very reason.
That kind of leads us into the next one, Frank, and let's go to your next stage in life. Talk about your business. How did it start? What are you doing today with Van Buren Advisory, LLC?
Well, over the years, I started when I got out of the military, and friend, from the book, that was a chance encounter on the beach. I actually just stumbled into this guy who was working on Wall Street. He was from the island of Cyprus. I was on the island of Cyprus in the Mediterranean. And, it was me and three other pilots sitting there and having some drinks. We had an off day. We would fly at night into Beirut, Lebanon with night vision goggles right out of the movie. But during the day, we would chill out. So he walks up and tells us about, he asks us if we're American. He tells us he's living in New York. He's working on Wall Street. And I'm 28 years old. And I'm like, what the heck is Wall Street? What is investment banking? And then again, it was that chance encounter, that pivot point that triggered me going back to business school that got me into finance. But once I got into finance, I actually didn't love the job of investment banking. It was much too academic, 80 to 100 hours a week, sitting in a cube, running models. I actually didn't like it at all, but it was a bridge to my next job on the trading floor, which was more like a team environment. If you picture big open trading floor, a lot of guys screaming, trading bonds, there's teamwork involved, there's highs, there's lows, there's a scorecard you see at the end of the day, whether you made money or lost money. And there is an emphasis on performance. It's a meritocracy. So I like that better than more the stuffy investment banking world. But one led to another. And I had a situation in December of 2018. And what happened was a guy that I had started at the bank with, his name was Dwayne Brown. And he and I started, there were 28 of us in the class. He was a former football player at Wake Forest, still looked like he could play football, 51 years old. He and I started together. Well, fast forward to 2018, December. He goes to the gym. He had left the bank that I was at. He works out. And as he's driving home at 51 years old in great shape, he had a massive cardiac arrest and didn't make it and died in the parking lot. When I found out about it, it just triggered this whole set of interest. That whole month of December, I kept thinking, one, he was a year younger than me. He was in better shape than me. And I kept thinking, man, I know he didn't start this year thinking he was close to the end of his life. And it brought me back to when I was in the military and we had a sense for living for the moment. That's the whole, live hard, play hard, work hard, play hard that you get out of aviators. But that moment, again, another dark moment, got me thinking about what I was doing at the bank, to answer your question. And I'd been there 21 years. I was a revenue generator, but I always really loved impacting people through mentorship, through leadership, more so than trading bonds or doing deals. And that led me to say in January of 2019, well, I'm going to go out and give 30 speeches because that's what gives me a sense of fulfillment. I'm going to keep my job. And so I started doing that. And 1 month into it, a guy walks up to me and I'm speaking to like 5 Boy Scouts, high school football team, like whoever. I just said, I'm going to do this because it gives me a sense of fulfillment. And I'm going to live 2019 like I'm doing something that impacts lives and what's important to me. Guy comes up to me, he goes, hey man, you got a lot of really good stories. He said, you should write a book. And Fran and Rob, honestly, I thought, write a book? I'd never written a book before. And I said to him, I don't know how to write a book and I don't want to put up a whole bunch of money for a publisher and all that. He goes, no. You have the stories. He said, get an audio recorder, talk the stories out, turn that into text, go on Fiverr.com, get some people to help you with the book cover. He said, and then you can go on Amazon KDP and sell it print on demand, because Amazon doesn't care if you sell 1 or 1 million. They're going to print what people buy. So I went home that night and I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, this guy is right. I could actually do it. 29 days later, that book you're holding was done.
29 days.
I had all the stories I'd been telling for years. And so the book was written, Fran and Rob, because I wanted to demonstrate not the glamour of being an aviator, but what it took to overcome adversity, hardship. I wanted people to know that it wasn't, everyone, even in these glamorous jobs, has insecurities. I had to wrestle with doubt. I had to wrestle with lack of confidence when you're trying to learn how to fly a helicopter. And my whole point was, read that book and anyone can do anything if you persevere, if you're disciplined, etc. But that led me to say to myself, you know what? I've been working for the big orgs for a long time, 26 years at Wells, 6 years for the big green machine, the Army. I think I should just try my own thing. And so I retired from Wells in October, and I focus 100% on doing the things that I love, whether it's speaking to groups, whether it's building online on-demand development programs. All of these things I'm doing what I love now. And so I feel like I keep moving towards what is right for me, and I think I'm here now.
jumping off subject here a little bit. You've got a son that's at Ohio State University playing some lacrosse, and I saw a little video clip you posted the other day. He's a big kid,
Yeah.
and what's it like as a proud dad? Having that kid at a D1 school, playing at a very high level.
Well, I take full credit as the Uber driver and the sports psychologist. Besides that, it was like him, like he put into work. He found something that he loved. And it's great to watch him at this level because I remember what it took. I'll tell you a quick story when I knew he was going to be really good and better than like my level of athlete when I played. He was in his maybe 10 or 11, and I had just finished that book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers.
Oh yeah.
And it talks about doing 10,000 hours, 10,000 reps. So at the time he was little, but he was a long pole defender. So the pole was a lot bigger than him. So he comes to me and goes, "Hey Dad, can I get a new pole at Dick's Sporting Goods?" And I don't know, I just read this book. So I said, "I tell you what, Bobby, this summer, if you do 10,000 throws on that rebounder in the backyard, I'll take you to Dick's Sporting Goods and buy you any stick you wanted." Lo and behold, that little guy, he went out every day with his jug of water and his stick in the hot North Carolina sun, and he would get like 500, and then we come in and put it on a spreadsheet. And he got his way to 10,000 throws. And I said to myself, oh my God, like the work ethic. And he would be out in the hot sun practicing his footwork. I take no credit beyond enabling him with getting him to places with his mother, as well as, sports psychology is a big thing, like making him think, why not? Why couldn't you be a big time player, right? If someone else can, why can't you? And so over the years, it's been fun to watch him, and he did it all on his own without, with the support with parents enabling him, but he put in a lot of work.
We're very excited to have you as our keynote speaker. Of course, you focus on mentoring and developing people. What can our alumni and the young Raider team expect to hear from you at the reunion?
I think I'll be really sentimental at reunion, maybe talk, about the relationships and the people there. Less about like on this, I was telling my stories. I want to really reflect back to what we had and what people who play there have now, and what through the alumni and Red Raiders for Life, et cetera, we continue to keep, right? Because if you leave and then you go off like the time I was in the Army, that was a gap in my life where I didn't have much connectivity to, my brothers on the Red Raiders and what everyone was doing besides, Facebook or whatever. And so I think what you guys are doing is connecting, it's building a bridge over the years, helping the young guys recognize the power of an alumni network, the value of connectivity and keeping relationships alive, not just for sentimental or fun reasons, but oftentimes they lead to business, they lead to one helping the other out if a family needs help. I mean, they really become the backbone of how you go through life. I got a lot of that, obviously, out of the people I served with in the military. But I think what you'll expect to hear from me, and I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to say, but maybe a few stories about our coaches or guys on the team, but really just a reflection on the value of, brotherhood, and the value of a network, and the value of our experiences at Shippensburg University. I mean, the funny thing is when people start school, they're always or before they pick a school, they have so much anxiety over and insecurity over what school they pick. But the minute they pick it, it becomes theirs. Mm-hmm. And you forever have that in your heart. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is all of my time in the business world, most of the deals or transactions that I did were followed by getting to know someone on a personal level. So, for example, I'm sitting down with a portfolio manager or an executive of a company, CEO, and before they wanted to talk business, they wanted to get to know you as a person, and getting to know you as a person and kind of what you're interested in and what you're connected to really gives people the confidence that you're someone they want to do business with. Well, Red Raiders for Life is essentially a very long bridge for that, right? It spans decades. And so there is a connectivity when I talk with you guys. Obviously, I play with Rob, that we have something in common. There are core values that we must share, right? Because we went through a similar experience. And that's always been the magic of the military. They take a kid from South Central, they take a kid from Idaho, a cowboy from Texas, suburban kid, and they put you all in, basic training together, and they give you a common nemesis, the drill sergeant. They give you a common task. Everyone has the same clothes. Everyone has the same, number of shoes. You can't cheat or whatever. And you immediately break down every artificial barrier in society. And you're like, okay, this is my squad. And if I had a problem with that person for whatever reason before I got here, got to get over it. We got to work together. So the military is good at that. And the only other place I've seen that is in sports, right? At that level. Sports does the same thing. And so the Red Raiders for Life and the alumni, it basically creates this connecting bridge, this shared experience where it doesn't matter if I worked on Wall Street and someone worked in marketing and another person spent most of the time in construction, another person was a Navy SEAL. When we come together, we can immediately talk about something in common, right? I can immediately understand that there is a bridge between us. And I think if we had more common experiences, we'd have less problems in society, right? We would. And it's almost like, and I'm not making a political statement here, but if we could make everyone do some military service or some service, maybe, everyone has to go to, you have a choice. You can serve in the military, you can work in a nursing home, you can do Habitat for Humanity, you can do, Teach for America, you can do the Peace Corps, whatever suits your boat, but you've got to do something that gives you a common experience with others. And I think if we did that, it would level a lot of the perceived, inequities that people have that existed, because just like in sports, it didn't matter if Mike Williams was from Newark, New Jersey, and, was Tatter from Mechanicsburg? Where's Tatter from? I can't remember.
He was from Hollidaysburg.
Hollidaysburg. I know it was somethingburg. It didn't matter. They could bond. And that's the magic of what you guys are doing. So I'm glad that you're doing it. It'll connect a lot of us and allow us to bridge decades of experience and figure out how to help each other.
You've seen a lot through your experience, a lot of different ways, but right now just talk athletics. And now you've gone through it kind of through your son's eyes with the whole recruiting process and seeing it. And I know things have changed a lot with the NIL and everything that's happening. To talk to a young athlete right now, what do you think is like the most valuable piece of advice you can give them?
It's tough with NIL because NIL is triggering decisions that turned it into a business way too early. And I think it's more difficult for the coaches to deal with, let's say the big schools, NIL athletes who may be making, what did Arch Manning just get offered to go to Alabama? It was like 13 million. He's going to be hard to coach, I think, right? Staying in Texas. But my point there is, so there are many more distractions, but at the end of the day, for you to succeed as an athlete, you have to put in the work. And to put in the work, I think the first thing to do is find athletes that you on your team or in history that you want to emulate. So for example, like remember Rob Davis? I don't know what Rob's current role is, but I remember when McCarthy hired him to be player personnel to really work with the young athletes, because of course they had tremendous respect for Rob. He was a journeyman. He's obviously a gentleman. He's a guy that cares about other people. He's unselfish. And these are the same characteristics he had as a freshman, right? When I was a senior, like you could see that no one knew how it was going to turn out for him. But to the extent teams can put in place real connectivity with role models, because remember, a lot of the elite athletes because of many things are, usually are not, don't have access to role models the way that we would hope, or maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago they did. We did. And so I think a big part of it is putting people like Rob in place that can lead, guide, mentor, pull them aside, give them context, let them know, hey, look, I was in the league all these years. It's important for you to save some money, and it's important for you to really pay attention to your personal associations. So these things are hard to do when someone's getting paid 13 million. Very hard. But hopefully you can connect with people they respect, like, let's say, Rob.
Well, thanks a lot, Frank, for being here. Rob, thank you again. It's just another plug for Frank's book, Life Lessons in the Cockpit. You can order it through Frank's website, and we'll put that up on. I'll put that up on the screen for everybody to take a look at and see. Rob, thanks a lot. I hope everybody can make it to the spring game. Listen to Frank's keynote speech on Friday night. We're really looking forward to that, and we got a big day planned and a big weekend planned. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me on. I had a great time.
Yeah, it's
Frank, great seeing you. See you in a couple weeks.
All right. See you later, Robbie.
See ya.